Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, it's something called Green Light Go. You want to stick around for this. Plus, then we're going to have a legislative update, and what would a show be if we didn't have a little on Harrisburg's porn gate? Let's get to it.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, welcome back to the program. We got a fun-packed, action-packed, information-packed. I think I got that all out 30 minutes. Let's get right to it. Joining me is the guy we call on all the time whenever we want to get into roads, bridges, and mass transit and all those important things. Bob Latham with the Associated Pennsylvania Constructors, and Barry Shoke, he's the Secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. I love this, Mr. Secretary. Green Light Go. It's important. You're doing it. Tell our viewers what's it about.
Well, what we're starting on is we have a program now with Act 89 in place. We've actually got funding to invest in traffic signals. And we've been looking at this for a while. There's no better low-cost improvement to reduce congestion and improve safety than upgrading traffic signals. The new equipment can process 30% more vehicles, the same intersection. So you don't have to add lanes, just process more vehicles. Act 89 put $40 million by year 3 for local governments who actually operate and maintain the signals to get up to 50% of the share of their cost in investing in them. So
you have 4 lights, consecutive lights, you go boom, boom, boom,
right
all
on through.
through.
And the timing is adjusted all the time based on the traffic volumes. So instead of preset or even the time-based coordination.
Now, I hope you're catching this because I think this is very important. How many times do we stop and go and then gasoline waste? Am I right about that?
Sure.
Sitting idle?
And not only the idling, it's an emissions issue. So while you're idling, there's emissions, better for the environment.
There you go.
More importantly, more your life back, right?
Now,
more
tell
time.
me about this. I'll put you on the spot. Do you have any clue about how many lights get adjusted this way, or is that
we're taking applications now through November 14th from municipalities. So the program builds. It starts off with about 10 million, builds to 40 million by year 3. We'll probably do several hundred signals a year, and it'll keep growing as the volume of revenue grows. And we're really incentivizing local governments on the heavily traveled roadways, the ones that carry 25,000 trips a day or more. If they upgrade those, when they upgrade them, we're going to take back the responsibility for operation and maintenance and tie them into our operations center. So we have 24/7 monitoring.
I'm putting the bid in for the light right by my house. There's 2 of them. We're going to get that done. All right.
Well, you have a willing ear here.
Yeah, there you go. Well, okay.
no promises.
All right, Bob. Gasoline prices. They're lower now. Yeah, despite the tax. That, the lifting of the wholesale gasoline tax, some of it's being passed along but they're lower now than they were a year ago.
Well, Terry, the whole time we were talking about Act 89 or the Comprehensive Transportation Funding Bill, we kept saying
it's a $2.4 billion a year
package, and everybody criticized it as it's going to have a dramatic impact on gasoline prices, and we have charts that go back 20 years that show that the taxes do not impact gasoline prices. What impacts gasoline prices is market and oil prices, market factors. And that's what you're seeing now. There are market factors that are creating the thing to go down. But look at it this way. We started to lift the cap on the oil company franchise tax. The Secretary just described some very innovative things that they're able to do. It's not just business as usual. We're putting pavement down on the road. We've got people back to work. We're creating safety, and nobody's seeing a dramatic impact at the pump. And that money that is in the oil franchise tax portion of your gas price is putting people back to work and improving your economy and making things safer around the state.
Yeah, one of the things, as a host, I've, for more years than I want to talk about, I've tried to remain neutral but on this subject about doing roads, bridges, and mass transit. There's no way that you can't say this needed to be done. You're shaking, and you were, of course, out front in this through the whole process. We're talking about security and safety. We're talking about safety on the roads. We're talking about economy. We're talking about bringing in new business. How can you have a modern economy without a modern infrastructure? I'm not the brightest guy in the world, but I
won't comment on that. But
I can figure that out.
It's one of the things that businesses look at, and Secretary Walker, DCED.
Right.
When the companies come to him that we're looking at Pennsylvania, they look at it geographic location.
Schools.
Great, right? Schools. They look at the natural resources in terms of the Marcellus gas, meaning low energy costs. Right. Great location, great workforce, What about infrastructure? And they would always ask to see me.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to get into the bridge replacement. Something like 25% of the state's bridges at one point were declared structurally deficient. We'll ask the Secretary and our expert, Bob Latham, about that and some more in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, we're discussing roads, bridges, and mass transit with the Secretary of the Department of Transportation and our expert, Bob Latham. All right, Mr. Secretary, 25% of these bridges, how are they coming? I see a lot of repair work being done all over the state. What's the update?
We were emphasizing it even before I was Secretary. Secretary Biller, my predecessor, was emphasizing bridges. At one time, we were 1 in 6 structurally efficient, or 1 in 4. We're probably down to about 1 in 6 now. But we're making more progress because of Act 89 in 2 ways. Our traditional program, we're putting more bridges on the street this year, probably another 100 bridges we otherwise wouldn't have done, focusing on structurally deficient. Then we have a Public-Private Partnership Act, and we're using that to do 558 bridges. Private sector will come in, finance, design, build, operate, and take care of those bridges.
So the private sector is doing it. It's like you're leasing out. You're saying, okay, go ahead.
We're saying you have a responsibility to finance it, build them, and then take care of them for 25 years. So in other words, a warranty with specifications about the condition, all steps along the way. And then we'll take back ownership. Oh, absolutely, we'll oversee it. But the economy of scale of bundling bridges of similar types and sizes, we've already done that on a pilot basis, and you see significant savings. So this is a program where we're going to knock down that number significantly, and we're going to do so at a much lower cost.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'd like to comment on that. We're very intrigued from the industry standpoint about how that's going to go, because there's going to be some changes in contracting methods, changes in material production and responsibility, and I think it's going to be very positive for both the construction industry and more importantly for the taxpayers of the Commonwealth.
You know, one of the things we talked about, in addition to, to have a modern economy, in quotes, you got to have a modern infrastructure system, but it also involves elements of mass transit, right? So They're all linked: mass transit, roads, bridges.
Really, we look at the transportation system of any way you move a person or product through the Commonwealth. And so ports, railroads, public transportation, our passenger rail systems from Harrisburg to Philadelphia and Harrisburg to Pittsburgh, we're making investments in all these modes. So you're going to see over the life of this bill, you're already seeing improvements to stations at SEPTA. You're seeing turnover of an aging bus fleet, which reduces emissions and improves efficiency of the buses. So we're seeing investments every place that a person or product has moved through the Commonwealth. Yeah. It's not just roads and bridges.
And I'm not a frequent user of the trains in our state, but I often go from my home in Lancaster to Philly. Actually, when I go to D.C., I go from Lancaster to Philly to Washington. And Bob, the increase in people using that portion of our infrastructure has been amazing. Now, I don't have the numbers, but upgrading all those stations, upgrading all those lines, it has to be an integral part of the whole.
Absolutely. And that was one of the beauties of Act 89, is a comprehensive transportation plan looking at the entire system before we had transit bills, highway bills, whatever. This was all together. One of the things that's important to note as a result of Act 89 is the impact on the economy that all of these programs have. For example, we talked about Manufacturing Week last week. High Steel Structures in Lancaster, and they have a plant in Williamsport, 30,000-foot expansion, 100 new employees as a result of this. But it's also important to note that SEPTA, the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transit Authority, purchases manufactured goods and then other services from every county of the state. So there's an economic impact, an economic benefit to every county of the state for the funding that goes to fund that transit program. The mobility is important, but also the the injection back into the economy is very excellent as well.
Before I let you go, what's on deck for next year? Okay.
Well, next year you'll see the beginning of the constructions. We expect to go to commercial close on that P3. So you'll see the 558 bridges, the rapid bridge program we call, starting next year. You'll also see the green light go moving forward. You'll see another year of about $2.4 billion in construction instead of what would have been $1.5 billion. So you're going to see a heck of a lot of construction around the Commonwealth. You'll also see station improvements at SEPTA stations. Also, we're working on station improvements along the Keystone line from Harrisburg to Philadelphia. Wow. Every corner of the Commonwealth, every county, you'll see improvements.
Let's come back soon and bring us another update. And you have some other research I think you want to talk about. We'll have to get to that. But I can't say enough about how important that is. But going from something like that to Porngate, and well, we'll be back.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania, and by the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance, representing companies involved in America's most affordable, reliable energy source. To learn more, visit pacoalalliance.com.
Well, it wouldn't be Pennsylvania Newsmakers if we didn't take a look at what's going on in the legislature as they're in their session. But before we get into that, but before that, let me introduce Robert Swift with Times Shamrock Newspapers and Brad Bumstead with the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. We got this Porngate situation where a bunch of folks who were in the Attorney General's office at one point, some of them went into the Governor Corbett's cabinet, were forwarding, sexually explicit emails, some of them with, religious and insensitive, containing insensitive religious material. Brad Bumstead has been all over that story. As we're taping this, there's still some unfolding events that will occur. Give us a quick update.
Well, there have been some additional resignations as a result of this, but the latest thing for your viewers by the time they watch this is that by then an agent, actually he's a technician agent for Kathleen Kane, the Attorney General, is meeting with Chief Justice Ronald Castile in Philadelphia, and that meeting is supposed to take place Friday. It'll have occurred by Sunday, and it's going to supply him with these pornographic emails relating to judges.
Judges.
Yes, and it was plural. The Philadelphia Inquirer had said that there were top jurists, plural, involved in it.
We've had one name out there,
we
right?
have, but that's stuck in Castile's crawl, and he wanted to know every judge. He wanted every email on it. And how do you say no to the Chief Justice? For a while, she did, but it doesn't last too long. Yeah,
you're not going to, particularly if you're the Attorney General. Robert's smiling. You're the Attorney General and you're going to go before the courts. You better, when the Chief Justice wants some information, go ahead.
Right, he's an officer, he's, has his own term ending. He wants to get this cleared up. He's not going to wait. And these are judicial rules involving lawyers and attorneys that they can go into next year, this process. And the other thing that reminds me, one thing, here you had this policy in the Attorney General's office not to be distributing this stuff, yet people, didn't take it seriously. Yeah. And this goes back to, you can have these rules and policies in place, but if they're not enforced.
So far, there's no question of legality here. It's the question of whether you violated a policy in the Attorney General's office about this kind of email being circulated on government. Do I got that right? On government
things. And I think people tend to need to realize that prosecutors have a lot of power that can ruin people's lives.
Yeah.
So when they're, if this kind of stuff is circulating through the system, it got there somehow, this is a very serious thing.
It may not be illegal. It's certainly not a crime, but a lot of people believe it's hypocritical and ironic that these same prosecutors were prosecuting state employees, legislative employees, for using state computers on state time for campaigns. Here they were using state computers on state time for porn. People involved in some of these bonus gate and other scandals have come to me and said, what's the difference? What is the difference?
Yeah.
Well, there is a big difference if it involves a lot of money, like in bonus gate, but theoretically, in concept, there are some similarities.
All right, here, the final question before we move on. Look, your paper is one of the papers that filed a right-to-know request. You want this information. Here's what I want to know. Why aren't we getting all of it? Why should the Attorney General not step aside, as she did, Kathleen Kane, in the business involving Jerry Sandusky and Governor Corbett, whether he played politics with the investigation and the prosecution? Why shouldn't she step aside, appoint an independent investigator? Why aren't we getting all of this?
That is a great question, Terry. I can't answer all of it this morning, but I can tell you that a lot of people are questioning the selectivity of the release in this case because they're all people who worked for the former Republican administration of Tom Corbett. She said, I was just answering right-to-know all requests, but I filed one and never named any of these people.
You want everybody.
I wanted everybody. But what they came back to me and said was, well, we were responding to Morning Call's request on this, and they named a lot of these people.
Selectively
but you can't answer my request based on what the Morning Call files.
Robert, should all this be out?
Yeah, and the sooner the better. I mean, just,
it's drip, 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 right? Is that the point?
Because if there's 30 more people, that's a huge number.
Yeah.
But so far, the Attorney General is not releasing the emails or names of current employees who had been there and received this material, who work for her now.
Right, and she argues that they're protected by a union contract. Is that what I understand?
That, and that there's internal investigations underway.
An internal investigation. Yeah, I get it, but you would agree that there's lots of people say independent, outside, let's get it all out.
Put it all out, everybody.
Yeah,
we don't even know the senders of this material when the people who received them have lost their jobs.
Yeah. So this has cost several people their jobs in the Corbett administration and one individual in the district attorney's office in Lancaster County, right?
That's correct.
So it's cost people jobs. All right, we're now going to turn to we'll do a legislative update. A couple of days left this coming week in the session. What did they do? What didn't they do? We'll find out in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Business Council and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation.
Brad Bumstead, Robert Swift, both longtime veteran reporters covering the state capitol. Robert, let me start with you. A couple of days left in the legislature. Much remains to be done. Fill us in.
Well, I think you have to look at it. The legislators are in there and they're looking at their own interest, which is the election day in the month. And they're doing stuff either to help themselves win election, maybe placate contributors who want to see some action on bills, and maybe prepare for a changing governorship as a Republican-controlled legislature. So you're seeing bills move to, transfer control of the redevelopment grants to a legislative-dominated authority, moving in the Senate.
In other words, the Republicans in the legislature, I'm not saying this will happen, but should Tom Wolf become governor, trying to absorb more power to them. Go ahead.
Right.
They're wolf-proofing.
Yes.
They're wolf-proofing.
And they're not, the popular things that people are looking at are not popular, but the medical marijuana, the pensions, that's not really on their plate right now. They're looking at their own situations, their own control of the chamber. That's what it's about. And I think you have to look at it from that perspective.
So nothing like pensions, liquor privatization, charter school reform, medical marijuana. I mean, I've just picked up four of the most obvious to me. You guys cover this, so you're...
No, it's about self-preservation, the election, and setting themselves up in a post-Tom Corbett era, assuming that Corbett loses as the polls indicate.
So as we look at it then, I mean, all the indications are, without getting into the prediction business, that the legislature is likely to remain Republican. I mean, no one suggests the House. Now, we'll get emails, I'll get tweets about this. And the Senate, you know, an outside chance it goes. So what you're basically talking about is should, and we're emphasizing that, should Tom Wolf become governor, he's going to have to deal with a Republican legislature that's trying to protect itself.
And they were doing this in 2002, you know, when the lame duck, when Governor Rendell was coming in. It's sort of a repeat. And some of these bills, there's another one in there moving around to have the legislature review any plans by the Federal Environmental Agency on coal emissions. And that's another one moving around there. They sort of dangled them out there. So you have 2 days left. So it starts to get hard to see. You have to do a lot of timing between the chambers to get these through. But I think that's what they're about right now, and that's how you have to look at them. And these bills are moving because some lawmaker wants it, maybe for a constituent. You know,
they can also do the newsletters and say this is what we're working on and why I'm working on it to protect.
Oh, see, right now there's a timeline. They can no longer send out newsletters right now.
Oh, is that? That's
election
right.
timeline.
That's right. I forgot about that. They can tweet it.
Yeah,
but before, look, the debate. We had a debate earlier last week. My own observation was I thought both candidates did pretty well. We saw a much more aggressive Tom Wolf, but another fine performance from Governor Corbett, right?
Right. We've had 3 debates overall. The first one, Tom Corbett clearly won. Wolf just didn't show up for that. I wonder, you know, what was wrong. The second one, Corbett won narrowly, I think, on points. But last night, you know, Wolf was good. I mean, they must have given him a shot of espresso beforehand because he wasn't engaged that much before. And he was very good. And Corbett was clawing and fighting the whole way. So it was a very good debate.
Yeah. Robert, you've covered a lot of elections. I mean, debates typically, I got asked this all the time, you know, don't really change the narrative very much, do they? You got to make some big blunder. I didn't see, none of these have produced a blunder or a big mistake, right?
No, none of the blunders, the inartful comments about something, say a social issue, that has not happened.
Did you say inartful?
Inartful, yes.
I love that word.
And I'll see, I've not seen that. And you now look, okay, what sort of outside event in the next, month could happen? I'm thinking
October
back
surprise.
the 1994 race when you had someone who had been on probation.
Oh, that's right.
Reginald McFadden
committed a murder, and that I think that was Tom Ridge's strong.
Killed him.
Yeah. Is that right? Yeah. I mean, I think we're all sort of looking. Well, thanks for coming on. One of the things we're going to keep an eye on, we'll watch the campaign, but also, as we go into a new session, should we get a new governor, we're going to have a whole different agenda and a divided legislature, and who knows what's, or not a divided legislature, but divided between the two branches, Republican one, Democrat the other. All right, thanks for the update. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.